Hi, in this Affinity tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this paper cut kind of looking Easter egg. It's actually pretty simple and it uses the shape tool as well as the layer effects. And we're going to create some texture with a piece of paper image. So let's get started. So I'm going to start a new file just so we can start from scratch. And I'm just picking letter size. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to start with the shape tool, and we're going to use the tier tool to draw out our egg. And so we'll draw out a nice big egg, and then I'm going to take the curve here and put it all the way up to 100%, and that gives me a rough egg shape. And I like this better than using the ellipse tool, which will give me more of a perfect oval that I would have to convert to curves and then manipulate. So just by creating a tier and turning the curve all the way up, I get something that looks like an egg. So I'm going to take the stroke off of this, and we're just going to fill it with a random color. So let's start with purple. And let's make it just a little bit nicer purple. And then I'm going to copy and paste, so Command C and Command V, Control if you're on a PC. That created a second one right on top. Let's give that just a different color. Command V again to paste a third one. Let's make that a different color. And let's do one more. We'll give that this color. It doesn't really matter what the colors are at this point. Next, I'm going to go to the bottom here. And I'm going to grab the triangle tool, and we'll just draw out a little triangle. And just to keep everything separate, I'm just going to make that a different color. Now I'm going to Command C and Command V again to copy and paste. And then you can see I've got two triangles now. I'm going to hold Shift, move it over. I've got snapping on so that as soon as it is kind of right over and it's kind of like point to point here, I'm going to let go. Command V to paste another one. Again, going to go right to the edge, holding Shift. Paste another one. Hold Shift and drag it over. And I think one more. And so what I'm creating is kind of that zigzag effect. Now I'm going to drag over all of these. And if we were in Designer, we would have our addition and subtraction and all our geometry buttons up in this area. Since I am not, I'm going to stay within Publisher. I'm going to go to Layer, Geometry, and Add. And so now you can see in my layers that this created a single shape now. So now let's put this over top of our shape. We'll drag it out a little bit, and I'm going to just squish it down. And as a matter of fact, now that I've squished it a little bit, I'm going to get rid of these. And now that I've adjusted the shape, let's make some copies of that so that they're all the same in each of our layers. Okay, so now I want to make sure that this is going all the way to the edge of my egg. In the Shape Tool tutorial, I demonstrated hide selection while dragging, so now I'm going to click that on. So as I expand this out, I can really see where my edges are without that selection box getting in my way. And we can turn that back off. The yellow is already selected, so I'm going to hold Shift and also select this top egg shape. Go back to Layer. And I'm not going to subtract because that's only going to minus the triangles out of my egg. So instead I want to divide. And now I can drag this away. Don't need it, so we're going to delete it. And then this divided also my yellow shapes, so I'm just going to select over all of those and delete them. And now we have our first layer of cutout. So let's grab our next layer. And it looks like it's already nicely lining up to the edges. And so we can leave it selected, hold Shift, click on the orange egg, Layer, Geometry, Divide. And then I'm going to select the bottom bit, move it out of the way and subtract it. Highlight over all of my yellow triangles, get rid of them. And there's our next layer. And then we will drag this one up and hold Shift and also select this teal colored egg, layer geometry, divide, grab the bottom one, click it away, highlight over all the yellow, click away that, and now you'll see that we're down to our purple one. So some things that you can do with this, so let's get rid of this, we don't need this anymore, is let's leave the bottom one purple, and let's take the next layer up. So I'm going to click on this layer, and we could fill this with, I think in my demo I had filled it with a paper texture. So with the shape selected here and the fill tool on, context fill, type will be bitmap, and I've downloaded some textures here, and so now that filled my texture there. Let's just kind of adjust it so that we like the look of it. Okay, I like that. And now let's click on our next one, which is the orange layer here. Still got the fill tool on, and I'm going to fill that one with a pattern. You can really let your mind go crazy with what you fill this with. Particular pattern I picked isn't seamless, so I'm going to actually leave the dots fairly big because it's not seamless. And then for the last one, let's just make it a different color. I feel like we've already got this blue, so maybe a nice pink, something like that. Let's do that. Okay, and so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some texture to all of this to make it look more paper-like. So I'm going to go to File and Place, and I already have a texture here, so I'm just going to browse and find it. And we'll open that up, and I'm just going to place it and put it over my entire egg here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click it and rasterize to mask. And so it may be a little bit difficult to see, but it kind of trimmed it. You can see the dots in the dark purple more than you can in the light purple. And so now it has kind of a nice texture to it. So the final step is to kind of give this some dimension to make it look like we cut this out of paper. So for this, I'm going to start with my pink one up here. And down here in my layers panel, I'm going to click on layer effects. It's the FX. And we'll go to outer shadow and click that on. And let's move this into the frame of the recording here. And so with outer shadow clicked on, let's change this to outer into the type, and then we'll give it some radius. And so watch this shape here a little bit. And I might soften it just a tiny bit. And then in the direction, I'm going to make it look like the shadows fairly like coming down this direction. So I'm going to click on the pink one here, and I'm going to copy. Then I'm going to click on the polka dotted one, and I'm going to go back up to edit and go paste effects. So that will only paste those layer effects onto there. And then we'll go to the next layer down, paste FX, and that added that outer shadow to this one. And so this allows you, once you've got settings you like, to apply the same settings really easily to each subsequent layer. So now let's click away and see what we've got. So now we've got a little Easter egg that we have filled with some pattern, with some texture. We overlaid a texture over the whole thing to make it look a little bit more paper-like. And then we added some outer shadows to each of the layers to make it look like we've cut this out of paper and stacked it on top of each other. Okay, so I hope you found that a fun little tutorial. And one other thing is if you have a cutting machine, you could export individual layers into PNGs, and then you would be able to cut them out on a cutting machine and actually construct this out of different papers. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed that tutorial and have some fun making some Easter eggs or any other sort of faux paper cut kind of designs. Thanks for watching.